This is a testimony meeting, and giving of testimonies is the main part of our meeting here tonight. And now I'd like to open the meeting to testimonies of healing through Christian Science. I'd like to remind everyone to keep their remarks within 4 minutes so that everyone who has something to share will have an opportunity to speak. So those of you who are on the teleconference, when you're ready to give your testimony, make sure there's no noise where you are, otherwise everyone's going to hear it. And then press *1 on your phone. That gives us the signal that you're ready to speak. And you should also hear an audio confirmation that your hand is raised. And when we're ready here, we will call on you. So the meeting is now open for testimonies. Anita from Oregon, go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to thank the readers for those beautiful readings. And I want to express my gratitude for this church and all of the devoted members who are working to keep Mrs. Eddy's Christian Science pure and freely given to the world. Some time ago, I found it necessary to leave here for a while, and I attended other churches in other denominations with other family and friends. And I often found myself mentally correcting what, in my opinion, what the ministers were saying. So much seemed to me was more a human opinion than of God. It wasn't hard to realize that I had to reconnect with Plainfield Independent Church. There is a unity here that I never saw in the other churches. People of one mind working together to further Mrs. Eddy's beautiful teachings and this wonderful way of living that she has presented to us. I am so grateful to be back. I thank God for Mary Baker Eddy and am grateful to Mrs. Eddy for all that she has given us. I thank our practitioners who also are teachers. I have had a lot of help to keep my head clear and headed in the right direction. I am so grateful to be back and be a member of this church. It's a wonderful place to be. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I occasionally go into New York on business, and when I do, it's quite a challenge for me. Long commute, it's quite a mental atmosphere to deal with, and it's generally a pretty long day for me, so it's generally quite a challenge. Well, a couple weeks ago, there were 2 days in a row that I had meetings scheduled in New York. One was a full day of training with people I'd never met before on subjects I had very little interest in. And the next day was presentations, again with people I'd never met. So it looms pretty large to me. And early the first day, I started not feeling very well. My stomach was full of butterflies, and I was just not happy being where I was. And in praying about it, a thought came to me that had been given to me by a practitioner once. And that was that wherever you are, whatever you're doing, there's only one reason for being there. And that is to bless the people you're with. To express the Christ as best you can and be a blessing for others. So I started praying and asking God, what do these people need? What can I offer to these people? And I stopped thinking about myself and thought about what I could do for them. And the atmosphere totally changed. I could feel God's dominion. I felt dominion in charge of the whole situation. I no longer felt like a victim of circumstances. Things came to me to say to them, to support them, to encourage them. I even made them laugh a couple of times. It turned out to be a very constructive and a very harmonious situation and experience. And that was for both days. I am so grateful for Christian Science. And I'm so grateful for the help that I have received from a practitioner in this church. It's great to be here tonight.
Thank you. Luann from New York, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. The evening prior to the Bible study, in which I was to moderate, I received a call to rescue my friend from the bitter chastisement of drunken family members. It would have required 8 hours of driving, and it was already late. My first thought was that I would not be home in time to moderate, or I would be so tired from travel that I could not give my complete attention to it. Still, I was getting ready to go. My second and most important thought was to call my practitioner. I sent her an email to which she immediately responded, stating, "This would be animal magnetism to take you from your rightful place." From the second I read this and strongly resolved that I was not going to give in to it, I received a call from my friend, which carried no manner of emergency. This situation had been exposed for what it was. My practitioner then called me and gave me further insight into animal magnetism and how it operates, which was most appreciated and brought the situation to an end. I have never experienced anything so humbling in all my life. I learned how animal magnetism would try to steal or interfere with my commitment to God if I allowed it to. It had come in the form of my personal sense of obligation. I would have driven right back into the very propensity this Bible study was helping me to understand. If I had not requested the help from my practitioner, who pointed out the error that was trying to interfere with this valuable insight, I would have once again fallen prey to animal magnetism. I am so grateful for everything that Christian Science is teaching me, and for the continuous and immediate help I receive from my practitioner. Her perfect discernment and devotion to truth has brought many blessings to me. I am forever grateful for all she has taught me and for the many healings I have received. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda from Pennsylvania, go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you very much for the readings. This evening, what I'd like to express my gratitude for how I've been blessed by this small band of unique individuals that have gathered together in this church. The sincerity, the honesty, devotion, purpose, inclusiveness that they all express is very powerful. I have learned from you all, felt supported, nurtured, and inspired by your shares. I know that there are so many parts that many of you play, many parts unseen, but that makes the whole move beautifully and bless many. And I just can't say thank you enough. For every one of you are so important. Good evening.
Thank you. Chardell from Pennsylvania, go ahead.
Hello, thank you. I am grateful for everything. It's just amazing to me. I could go on and on about the readings are wonderful, the testimonies, the support, the Bible studies, the round table, everything. Our practitioners. But I had something really astounding happen yesterday. It was a true healing that happened because of this church. I burned myself, my fingers, and I was astounded for a little while, that the pain that came to me. I knew I immediately stopped, turned, and thought I can demonstrate, and I've thought this before, the week before, I can demonstrate what's real. and I called my practitioner, and I didn't write it. Usually I write things down. I didn't have time to write it down, but the thought that I was safe and that nothing could happen to me. I would just like everyone to know that if some kind of pain comes to you, it's not real. And through understanding God and everything we're working with, that I was relieved by early afternoon. It was a little bit of a struggle for me, but it happened, and I was absolutely pain-free. My fingers are normal now, and I move them, and they're perfect. Thank you so much, all of you.
Thank you. Elizabeth from Georgia, go ahead.
Yes, hi. I just wanted to express my gratitude tonight for growth in my thought over the past few months. Before being introduced to Plainfield Church, I would read the lesson from the Mother Church maybe once or twice a week, something I felt I should do as a Christian Scientist, but I wasn't really using it or thinking about it at all. And now I find myself delving into the lesson and looking at words I used to glaze over in the past. And I'm finding new meaning in what I'm learning and ways to apply it. And through help from a practitioner there, I've also been reintroduced to Mrs. Eddy's works, particularly miscellaneous writings, in a new way, meaning that I'm not just reading the words, but I'm understanding them as well. Some of the ideas and statements that were not clear to me before, because my thought was so foggy, have been elucidated. And sometimes they jump off the page, and I wonder how I've missed them in the past. So thank you for keeping the learning fresh and new, and thank you, Tony and Florence, for the wonderful readings.
And thank you.
There's a line in one of the songs that Peter and Faith sang recently, and it just keeps coming back to me. It says, "You can't dig your way out of a pit." That's really true, because the more you dig, the deeper the pit gets. And boy, I had to learn that when I first came here, because if anything went wrong, I would go around and around and around with it and try to figure it out. And how did this happen? Why did this happen? How am I going to get out of this? And I learned here that instead of doing that and going bonkers with it, stop, look up to God, and ask Him. And then listen. That was another major thing I had to learn. God has the answer, and if we are just quiet and patient and listen to Him and don't get our own ideas in and telling God what we think He should do, that's when we get the most wonderful results that there could ever be, much better than anything we could ever come about by ourselves. I am so grateful for this church. I'm so grateful for practitioner help, and to Mrs. Eddy for giving us this wonderful way of life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yesterday afternoon when I went to the supermarket, got inside the store, and all of a sudden one of my eyes became extremely itchy. I couldn't stop rubbing it. I have never had anything like this before. And at first I was thinking, gosh, what is this? And then I stopped and said, no, this is not from God. I don't have to have it. And then so loud and clear, the words from our lesson came to me, the kingdom of God is within you. And it kept coming to me. And I just knew that God was there. This wasn't from Him. I don't have to have it. And I wasn't going to be impressed. And I had gone by a mirror and I looked and my eye was just so pink and watery. But I said, no, I am not impressed. God is the only truth about me. And Then I went on my way and finished what I was doing, and in a few minutes the itching stopped. And so I finished what I was doing in the store. Nobody said anything about it because it wasn't from God, it wasn't true. And I got home, and a couple hours later, all the redness was gone. It was completely healed, and I just couldn't stop thanking God. This was a blessing from Him, and I was so grateful. I thank God for His love. He's always there with us, around us, and within us, taking care of us. And thank you for those wonderful readings.
Thank you. Laverne from Maryland, go ahead.
Hello. I would like to express my gratitude for recent healing. Today, I attended meeting after meeting because it's the end of the fiscal year and work has been really, really busy. So while on my way to yet another meeting, it was a meeting that I did not want to attend, I got a really sharp pain in my thumb. And when I looked down, it was a bright red bruise. And I immediately denied the reality of the error. I said, I don't have time for this foolishness. And immediately it stopped aching. And I thank God, and I was tempted to be surprised, but I knocked that out of my thought right away and was just basking in the gratitude. And so I went to the meeting, and it turned out okay, and came back to my office and had to go to another meeting. And I didn't think about the thumb again until hours later, when I noticed that there was no evidence at all of it ever being bruised. And this is more evidence of my growing understanding of God and understanding that I'm gaining from this church and from working with a Christian Science practitioner from this church, for which I am truly, truly grateful. And again, I thank you all so much for so much. And thanks for those inspiring readings.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to add my thanks tonight as well. Those were spectacular readings that we heard earlier. Thank you, Tony and Florence. Also, I'm thankful because I started spending some time with our September issue of the Liberator magazine. It can be found on our website. And the thing that really touched my heart was this article by Edward Kimball, where he was talking about never to practice condemnation, but rather to love, and talked about the experience of Mary Baker Eddy, where she may have had someone with her, and perhaps this person was 40% good and 60% bad, and she had the wisdom to use that 40% and give it a chance to grow into 50 or 60 or whatever. And it reminded me of the time when I first found Real Christian Science here in the Plainfield Church, and I don't think I want to try and tell you what percentages I had at the time, the good versus bad, but I needed a lot of help, believe me. But there was no condemnation. And in the ensuing years, there were many learning experiences, and including many rebukes, which, if done right, are love. They are not condemning. So it just touched my heart to see that article and to remember what I've learned here in this church, what it's done for me. Because if I had to be anything above 50% good before I showed up, I would have never have made it. But here I am, still here. So I'm thankful for everything God's doing here and all of the good everywhere.
Are you gonna ask me? Let me make sure my level's right. I just wanted to say, I don't know what my percentage was either, but I'm so grateful when I came here, all the love and support, and I am still grateful for all the love and support. And without that, I would not have made it through to this even still beginning stage that I'm at, but I'm just so grateful for that. And I'm also grateful for all the teachings that we've had about animal magnetism and how to recognize it and how to fight it, because it comes up a lot. It's such a thing to deal with, like, all the time, not to get discouraged and all that. So having those tools makes it easier, not totally easy, but easy enough. So I'm just so grateful for that, and I'm grateful for my practitioner helping me out all the time, and everybody here having that sense of unity so that we can get through this together and in a positive way for God. So I'm just so grateful for that.
Thank you. The Moores from Georgia.
Hey, this is Lenny. I just wanted to express gratitude tonight for, well, a couple of things. First, for the readings tonight. It's been a joy to hear the different people read, and Tony and Florence did a great job, and I love how we've been having different readers. It's been really neat to hear everybody's inspiration every week. I also wanted to give gratitude just for something I was thinking about today as I was thinking about our service coming up and looking back on some of the growth. It reminded me of when I first came to the church, and one of the very first things that a practitioner here gave to me, and I believe to my husband too, to work with, was an article from Reverend Kratzer about how God governs our feelings. And that was such a new idea for me. I had never thought of God governing my feelings. God, my impression of God was a very intellectual one. It was, it had nothing really to do with my feelings. And I realized recently how much my feelings help me hear God and be in tune with things that I need to do, when I need to pray, when I need to take action. It's been a real change for me. So quite often now, if I'm feeling a certain way, I understand it for what it is, and it's sometimes a call to action, and I've had to take specific action to do something that God's calling me to do. Or, I recognize it as a time to pray specifically about something. So it's been a wonderful lesson that has just continued to unfold in my experience. And I was just thinking how grateful I was for that today. This past weekend, when we were talking about pond and purpose, one thing that really resonated with me had to do with the second baptism, where she talks about developing a deep-toned faith. And I realized that is what the teaching in this church is developing in me. It's this deep-toned faith in God and the ability to demonstrate and understand like I never have before. Just like a good athlete, you don't get to that point without a deep toning of, your muscles in the process. I mean, this is our deep-toned faith in God, and it's practice and the, that comes from demonstration, from serving. So I love that idea, and I love what I'm learning here in this church. And again, just so grateful for that, and so grateful for the unity and the love that I feel from the memberships and from these meetings we've been having recently, especially. It's been lovely, and it's been an inspiration. And I'm just so grateful to you all, and to Mrs. Eddy, and again to the practitioners here. It's just beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This afternoon at work, I came down with a stomach virus, and it didn't appear that I was going to be able to stay the rest of the day. But then a statement from Watches, Prayers, and Arguments by Mrs. Eddy came to me, and it was, "This is not your error or sin. It is an attack on your Christ." And I thought, that's all this is. It's Wednesday night. I need to be praying for the church service. And I have to stand strong and be part of it. And I worked along those ways, and I was feeling better by the time I got home, and I just kept praying. And by the time I came into church, I was fine. I was healed. I am just so grateful for what we're learning in this church and for the practitioner help. That's always so encouraging. And to be able to speak up to error. It's not anybody's. It's an attack on our Christ. And I'm so grateful for this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Florence from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to express my gratitude for something I learned through Christian Science through this church. While before I would be so sad when healings were not very quickly, I have learned that even the delayed ones are a blessing, because there's so much more to learn about myself, to clear my thinking, to ask God to cleanse me of any secret fault. And in doing that, recently there's something I've been working on that seemed to be taking so long. But praying about it, I kept hearing, rejoice, rejoice. And I've learned through this church that depression really does not belong to any child of God. That was a surprise to me when I first came across that. And that actually depression is sinful, because it means that my thinking is on the wrong side. It's not on God's side, because He does not give that. Joy and happiness comes from Him. And so I have used this, even though it was difficult, I kept telling myself and using any hymns, any psalms, anything that would uplift my thinking. And doing that has gradually, it's as if something is being wiped away from my thought, and I'm regaining the joy again, and appreciating more the truth and all the things I'm learning about myself, and how much more is being revealed to me through my study of Christian Science. I'm so grateful for this, because nowhere did I come across depression as being described as a sin. I'm grateful for everything that I've learned through Christian Science. It has saved my life, and I am grateful for having found the way to live it through this church.
Thank you. The Moores from Georgia, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. This is Tony. Something I've noticed in me, and a couple of times my practitioner has said to me when I was going through something, that God loved me. And I realized that I didn't feel like I deserved it. I was looking at my past and thinking that I really didn't deserve these blessings that I was reading about in the Bible or in Science and Health by Mary Baker Eddy. It was really subtle. I didn't even really know that was there, but it's becoming more clear that this is a horrible, horrible thing that I guess you'd say the devil or whatever would try to say to someone. And it just came, it was just coming to me that you really have to drop the baggage of the past to accept the blessings of today. And it's because that, my perfection has always been preserved. It's untarnished. And this is because God is spiritual and I am His expression. And Jesus Christ has proved this time and time again when He restored health and morals within people. And I can have that too. And as that became more clear to me, I realized, I have been healed. My morals have increased, and my completely dormant spiritual sense has awakened, and now I'm able to be of some use to God. And all of that is now possible because I have been brought to this church. And I'm so grateful to Mrs. Eddy for her revelation of this science that's making this practical for us today. And very grateful for the continued support that I receive from a practitioner. And thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Benjamin from New Jersey.
Thank you. I'm grateful to be here tonight. I'm also grateful for all the testimonies and the wonderful reading. When we read the Bible and the science and health, there's always this command that always comes directly or indirectly to us to go out and be the light of the world and let our light shine, because this is the only work we have on earth, and to me it's the only purpose we have here on earth as pilgrims, like the hymns said tonight. And I thank God for bringing me here to this church that's helping me to understand this purpose. And it's the only thing that makes me happy, frankly. A few years ago, it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I was driving my car. I think I was still living in Plainfield at that time. And on 7th Street, I think I was coming home from work. And I saw this woman on the other side of the street. I know her very well. She's an older woman. I met her once in a Jamaican restaurant that I go sometimes in Plainfield. And I saw her, and she had bandages on her hand. And then one of her hands was tied with bandages. Then I stopped my car, and she recognized me. I asked her, "Where are you going? Can I drop you?" She said, "Yeah." Then she told me that she was going to see a doctor. She had an appointment that evening for that hand. So okay, I can take you there. Where? Then I found out she was going like 10 miles or more away from here. If you live around here, you know the distance from here to Edison. It's quite a long way to walk, somebody like her. And it was a good opportunity for me that time that I stopped for her, because I used the opportunity to talk to her about God, how much God loves her, and how God was going to take care of her broken hand. And she speaks in Jamaican, but I was able to understand her a little bit. But she understood everything that I told her. Then I dropped her off at the doctor's place, and I brought her back. And that was 3 years ago or more. But today I met her today because I went to that restaurant, and I saw her. She was very happy to see me. And she came to me, and she started showing me the hand. And the hand had been completely healed. And I was happy to see her. And I told her, "You remember what I told you that day, that God loves you, and He will take care of your hand. And there is never the will of God that any part of you will be broken. And if anything's broken, He takes care of it." And I also assure her today that the pain will never come back. She was very receptive to it. I'm very, very happy to see me, and I was happy to see her. I'm just so happy for that opportunity that God gave me. And the lesson that I learned from it is this: there's always opportunity to reflect that light. We just have to be open-minded and expectant about it. God will always provide us with opportunity to be that light of the world and continue our purpose here on earth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tonight we have an email from Germany. I'm very grateful that I can listen online to the Plainfield Sunday service and during the week to Joseph's reading of the weekly Bible lesson. When it is not personally possible to participate in the Bible study or the round table, then there is the opportunity to listen to the recorded version. This happened last week, and I was very grateful to get inspired again to read the chapters in Science and Health, which are the key to the Scriptures, Genesis and Apocalypse. Due to another Christian scientist here in Hamburg, I have been following the Bible studies, roundtables, and the forum of this church, and I understand bit by bit more and more. These online offers are lively, informative, and thought-provoking. Thank you. Since a few years, I have been handling mental health issues, and since I work with a practitioner from this church who lovingly and diligently helps me, I'm getting a clearer sense that I can be helped and to be healed. I am finding more understanding also by the suggestion of reading other writings of Mrs. Eddy and her early workers. I am also very grateful for Andrew's reading of the first edition of the textbook and the possibility to have access to it at any time. Thank you, everybody who is actively working in this independent work of Christian Science. I am very grateful to have discovered you. This evening, we heard a lot about unity. This morning, when I was praying about a few things, I turned to this on page 4 of Collectania. It's Mrs. Eddy. Love alone will found, upbuild, and establish forever both the Christian Scientist and our cause. But envy, jealousy, or rivalry will kill the spirit of the science in the person who possesses it and will thwart the establishment of it in this age. Oh, why has not this been realized by everyone who has the cause at heart and who has labored faithfully in some directions for its advancement? The principle of our demonstration as Christian scientists is unity, and our demonstrations depend on united minds and their at one-ment with the one mind. This is one thing that has been so impressed upon us, this idea of unity. It doesn't come easily. To some, it might even appear to be human harmony, but it is far from that. It requires great dedication and work. It means that we always don't agree. We do co-elbow, as Mrs. Eddy says, but in the end, we will put our differences aside to commune with that one mind and to get a right answer. And the one mind is then expressed, and we go on together in that unity. It has seen us through very perilous times because, as has been said, one stick you can break, but a bunch you cannot. But as in this reading, the one thing that has united us is our steadfast love for this cause. It beats in the heart of everyone, whether you are sitting here in this auditorium or whether you are out amongst the world. We are all one in this effort. I thank God for each and every one of you. I thank God for the readings tonight. They were selected and read with such great strength and understanding. They were readings of substance. The testimonies tonight were from the heart and of substance. This is what can be accomplished when we gather together in the one mind. I thank God for this independent church, for each and every one of you. I'm so grateful to be here and to be here tonight.
Thank you.